just to introduce myself, my name's Rose. I'm the Local Nature Partnerships Coordinator for RCT Local Nature Partnership, and I also cover Neath Talbot Local Nature Partnership as well. I'm hosted with the council, and my job is just to support the Local Nature Partnership in its work. It would be really great, I think, if there's quite a lot of us here and from different areas around RCT. If you wanted to introduce yourself in the chat, just say who you are and if you're from a community group or what community you're in, that'd be really nice, I think, so we can all see where we're all coming from. So this is the first time we've done this kind of workshop. The reason we thought to start it is because we've had quite a lot of requests. You know, obviously we've just been talking about how many more people are interested in discovering nature and going out in their communities and trying to help nature over lockdown. So we've been receiving quite a lot of requests for help and for guidance. So we thought having a fixed sort of evening like this, it would be a good way of getting us all together, giving each other some ideas and having a chat as well, hopefully. So yeah, I really hope this evening will be useful to you. But if it's not, there's a chance to feedback at the end. So just to get started, so this is all why we're all here, essentially. You know, if these are an infographic from the 2019 State of Nature report, which was really quite frightening, and it came, you know, brought to light how many of the species that we have in the UK are at risk of extinction. 8% of remaining species have already lost. You know, we've lost so many already. And then we've got these terrifying headlines that have come up during the COVID pandemic as well. You know, nature's sending us a message. We need to actually start doing something about looking after nature. So I think that's why we're all here, and what we want to, you know, what we're all trying to achieve is trying to do something about this and give something back in our communities. So yeah, so that's it. One of the I've got to let someone in a second. So yeah, one of the scary statistics there is 8% of species in Wales are threatened with extinction. So, you know, when we think about how we all used to worry, or we still worry about the tigers and the polar bears, but actually many of our species here at home are at risk of extinction as well. So just to give you a bit of a background about the Local Nature Partnership itself. So we're a combination of lots of different organisations, lots of different individuals, communities, groups, all that are interested in or are doing action for nature in RCT. So there's all sorts of people involved, Keep Wales Tidy, NRW, the government body, the council. So a couple of my colleagues from the council are here tonight, Marie and Richard. Subrec, the local environmental record centre, so Lane's here tonight as well. Coal spoil fungi, that's Emma's here. Glamorgan Fungus Group, Mark is here. So there's a number of us here tonight. So if you wanted to ask any questions, there's a number of us involved. And our mission is essentially we work together to plan and deliver action for nature in the county. So everything that you're planning to do with your groups or in your communities is essentially doing the work that we want to see you doing. So our aim is to raise awareness of the nature of RCT, record the nature of RCT, protect the nature of RCT, and manage areas for the benefit of the nature of RCT. So there's all these different organisations and groups working together to do all these different things. And some of the things we do, we do plans, and we write and produce plans and policy development. So at the moment we are reviewing the Nature Recovery Action Plan, which is called Action for Nature. So that will be our sort of guideline on our roadmap for helping nature in RCT. we get together regularly and network and come up with new partnership projects, talk to our neighbours and see what they're doing and if we can link up. Lots of practical conservation projects. I'll let some people in a second. Excuse me. Oh. I've lost my presentation again, sorry. Where is my shared window? Good point. There it is. All sorts of events, education, awareness raising, and we're here to advise people as well. So we've got a wealth of expertise, people with insane amounts of knowledge about various things, invertebrates. We've got 2 fungi experts here tonight. So if you're looking for advice about species, habitats, how you do things, the Local Nature Partnership is a good place to come to. So we're really lucky in RCT. We've got an incredible array of habitats, from the bogs up in the uplands, the peat bogs, stunning woodland habitats, upland oak woods and lowland bluebell woods. This down in the right hand corner here, Ross pasture full of devil's bit scabious. You can drive along the roads in September time and just see haze of purple. I can't forget the colliery spoil as well. It's a massively undervalued habitat and one that we're realising is really, really important for our nature. It's always under threat from development, but one that you're finding rare species on all the time. And of course, then people's gardens and things like our roadside verges. We've got all this amazing array of places where nature can be found in RCT. We've got some really rare species as well. So things like the marsh fritillary butterfly. RCT is a bit of a stronghold, and that's dependent on the devil's bit scabious in the purple fields. Dormice, Brinner and the hedgerows and the woodlands are just full of these little mammals. Emma from coal spoil fungi has discovered this, I'll have a go at the Latin name now, Cortinarius folidaeus, I think. So that's a new to Wales species that Emma discovered on Tower Colliery. Green-winged orchids, the small population of this in cemetery down near Pontoclean, and small scabious mining bee. And if you can see, if you look very, very closely in this picture, this is an amazing bird, the nightjar, which can be found in the uplands, and you can hear them making this amazing churring call at times in the nights. So we're all here tonight to talk about community action for nature and the things that people can do in their own communities to help their local nature. And like we say, the partnership is here to support you with that. So, there's in normal times, non-COVID times, there'd be lots of opportunities to go out volunteering, doing habitat management, things like litter picks, balsam bashing. There's in the top right, that's me and my friend doing a toad patrol, helping toads cross the roads, wildlife walks, surveys. There's all sorts of things you can do out in the community. So at this point, I just wanted to talk about managing the expectations of your community groups and what you can do as a community and what might be the most useful thing for you to do. And this is one of the things that it's often presented as an idea. It's a lovely one. Planting wildflowers is something that people quite often want to do. It looks like an easy hit, and it's something that you seed bombing, things like that, people quite like to do. But I'm showing you this picture. This is out of county. This is actually in our office building in East Port Talbot. But I just wanted to show you that while it looks, it looks green, it's quite a boring looking piece of grass. As soon as you start to look closer, you can see there is actually a lot in this grassland. So as well as sort of daisies and things like this, the more common plants, you get things like this on the right here is a bee orchid rosette. So given space to grow, you'll actually find things like orchids popping up in these grasslands. So we're extremely fortunate in RCT. We've got this really strong native seed bank. So our policy here, rather than planting wildflowers or seeding, is always to encourage what's already there through correct management. So by correct management, we mean you cut at the correct time and you take away the cuttings, which keeps the nutrients levels low in the soil, and that creates the conditions that the wildflowers like. So you can do that by hand. So I was talking about Pontoclean Environment Group often help out with the Talagon orchid verge. So at the end of the summer that will be cut and the group will come along and rake all the cuttings off. And the reason we do this, so because the seed bank is already there, quite often you will find that things will pop up without any intervention at all. So to illustrate that, this is some pictures that Liam Olds, one of the partnership members, took from lockdown last year. So obviously a lot of people noticed this, I think, during lockdown. There was a sort of relaxation of mowing regimes when everything stopped due to COVID. And I don't know if anyone else noticed, but there was suddenly all these wildflowers popping up everywhere. And nobody planted these wildflowers. They were just popping up because the mowing regime was relaxed. So this is just a sort of note to say, before you consider doing any seed bombing or planting of wildflowers, you should always see what pops up in your land before you start doing that. So you can see straight away you'd be saving yourself a lot of money in terms of planting seeds. And it's much better for the genetic diversity as well of the flowers and that will come up, because they are from that area. They are the locally sourced plants, so you'll get really nice displays of local wildflowers that suit the conditions that are there. So at this point I'll mention the road verge policy. So RCT Council has got this wildflower verge policy, get my words out. So we are trying to establish more of these verges which are managed for wildflowers. So that's a policy that's been adopted in recent years, and year on year Marie and Richard and other colleagues in RCT are working really hard to establish more of these verges and bring them into correct management, so cutting and collect management. So you can look out for these signs, the yellow brimstone butterfly, and you can read, I will send around this presentation afterwards which will have all the links within it. So you can go away and read the road verge policy. And what we would really like as well is if you see any sites that could be potential to be added to this road verge policy, get in touch with us and let us know, because the more the merrier when it comes to wildflower verges. We'd all like to see more of these as we're driving around RCT. And another thing I wanted to bring up in terms of managing the expectations is, well, something that always is coming up at the moment, and there's a huge driver for it, is as a result of climate change. We're all aware of climate change. It's scary and it's affecting everyone everywhere, as it says in this infographic. And as a result, we're getting a huge pressure to go out and do this and plant trees. So this was just a bit of a word about this. So it's at the forefront of the media. People want to do what they can to help. So tree planting is quite often proposed as an activity that people would like to be doing. But I just wanted to show you this picture because it really shows the value of doing your research and making sure that it's the right thing to do. Because this is that same hillside covered in trees as it was before they covered it in trees. So it was actually an incredibly special wildflower grassland that was planted over, and this was actually done by Nestle, and they actually ended up having to pull up all of those trees up because they planted on land that was already important habitat for wildlife. And this is where we can help you a bit and guide you. And there's this 10 golden rules for tree planting that I just wanted to mention. So this came out quite recently, and it's brilliant. It's just if any tree planting schemes come up in your community, or if it's something that you'd like to do, you go through these 10 golden rules first, and just make sure that what you're doing is actually the right thing. One of the key ones I wanted to pull out here was number 4, which is selecting the right area for reforestation. And as it says, ultimately the best area for planting trees is previously forested land that has become degraded. And the reason for this is, things such as grasslands, wetlands, other habitats that you might not consider, they already actually do capture carbon in the soil, and in some cases actually more than woodland does. So it's something you need to consider. This story map from RSPB is worth looking at as well. When I send this presentation around, you'll get the link. Explains more about this. The other thing is that it's best to plant trees on inorganic soils rather than organic soils. Organic soils are the ones that store the carbon. So there's a lot behind tree planting, and the reason that I'm going into this a bit is because you, as community groups or environmental people in your community, are in a key position to help raise awareness of this. Is one thing that many people are not aware of, and they would actually be mortified by if they learned that they could actually cause some damage by tree planting. So I just wanted to raise it here because you guys can go away and help spread that message for us, and just make sure that it's the right tree in the right place. So getting on to this part of the evening, which is ideas for events and activities. So what I've got in mind for these workshops is we'll hold one sort of roughly every 3 months, and we'll go through a few different activities for the next 3 months coming after the meeting. So hopefully it will help you plan what you can do with your groups or you as individuals. And for each month, I'm going to give you some activities that you could do in your garden, some that you could go out and about with the group, do if COVID allows you. And I hope it's just going to sort of spark some ideas for things that you can do. So we're going to start with April, give you time to plan ahead. And one of the first things I wanted to mention was these lovely Bumblebee nest pots. So this is a really nice one that you could encourage people to do in their own gardens or in community areas. Just checking short. Sorry, I've lost my PowerPoint again. Yeah. There we are. And it's really easy to make as well. You can make it with materials that you've got lying around in the garden. So things like old flower pots, nesting materials, sort of dried grass or hay, old lengths of hose pipe, then as a pipe. So you would put all the nesting material inside the flower pot, sort of half bury it with the hose pipe out as a guide for the bees to enter. So you've probably seen over the weekend that we just had, is starting to get warm enough for the queen bumblebees to come out of hibernation, and we're starting to see them flying about again and look for nest sites. So over the next few months is a good time to get these nest sites out for them to utilise. It's perhaps difficult to get hold of, but one of the good ideas for use for nesting material is actually old mouse nests. So bumblebees tend to use mouse tunnels. That's one of the places that they will do nests in out normally. So if you manage to get hold of pet hamster or something and you can use their old bedding, that quite often attracts the queens to investigate. And again, I'll send this PowerPoint around afterwards, and the links have got more information about how you can do all of these things. Another one that's nice to start in April, the birds that I'm already noticing sort of flirting going on in my gardens, and blue tits investigating the nest boxes. So it won't be long before we start seeing birds going back and forth to nests and building nests. So this is a really nice one. The British Trust for Ornithology have a nest recording scheme, and you can do different levels of this, I think, according to how long you want to spend doing it and how you want to go about it. But it's just, you go out and you try and find some nests, and then you keep an eye on them over the whole breeding season. And it's a really nice one for, you can take kids out to sit and watch a nest, and really relaxing thing to do, and it's just amazing, really rewarding to see if a nest succeeds. So that's another nice one to encourage groups. You can do as a group. You can all go and sit out quietly and watch a nest, or you can encourage people to do it individually. Always a favourite to do with kids, pond dipping. And again, one that you don't need, professional equipment to do. You can just get an old net, some trays, and just go out and fish around in a pond and see what you find. There's some really good, you can see them in this picture, some really good sort of ID guides from FSC, which you can use to help identify what you find. But that's a really nice one to do with groups, or again, you can encourage people to have a look. There's a guide to pond tipping tips for a successful trip link there, and there's a few things, there's quite a lot of health and safety to consider with working around a pond. And the other thing to bear in mind is biosecurity between ponds as well. So there is a number of invasive pond plants, non-native pond plants, and amphibian diseases as well. So you would need to consider biosecurity and make sure that you were washing all your equipment between ponds and not doing 2 ponds in one go. So this is always a really lovely event, held every year. So this year it's on Sunday, the 2nd of May, International Dawn Chorus Day. There's loads of information about this online. I've put the Wildlife Trust's link on, but there's plenty of others. And yeah, you just encourage people to get up about half an hour before sunrise. Again, you can do it as a group, or just get people to go and sit in their gardens, and perhaps you could get them to say on social media what they're seeing and what they're hearing, record things, and you could turn it into a social media event. But it's a lovely one to do. Go and sit in the garden, listen to, you know, it'll start with the birds with bigger eyes, blackbirds and song thrushes, and then go all the way through to the birds that start getting up later. And it's a nice way to sort of introduce people to listening to bird song as well. A mindful activity, really lovely one to do and get involved with. I think there is a International Dawn Chorus Day website as well that you can register your event on, and you know, encourage people to come along too. Tying in with what I was saying about the roadside verges, then we've got No Mow May. So that's the whole month of May. You can encourage people in your community to stop mowing their lawns, encourage the wildflowers to grow on their lawns. So that's a really good initiative to sort of start this conversation about, you know, seeing what comes up, encouraging your native wildflowers, letting things grow, and then every flower counts. These are both plant life initiatives, so there's lots of information on the Plant Life website. Every flower counts is at the end of May and sort of the culmination of your hard work from No Mow May. So you put the lawnmower away at the start of May, and then at the end of May you can do every flower counts, which sort of gives you a rough nectar score for your lawn. So you count the flowers that are in a certain area of the lawn and calculate it up to work out how many bees that your lawn might be feeding. So that's a really, really nice one, and you can, you know, you could have a friendly competition between your community, sort of saying, my nectar score is better than yours. It's a nice one to do and get involved with and encourage. Get people away from mowing their lawns to within an inch of their lives. And, you know, you can then link that to World Bee Day, which is on the 20th of May. So this is, you know, you can go from No Mow May, encouraging the wildflowers, to then taking part in the UK pollinator monitoring scheme. And, you know, people can sit in their new lawns and see what pollinators visit. So this is more of a complicated one, but you can do a flower insect timed count, and it explains how exactly you do that on this web page. But essentially you sit and watch a patch of flowers for 10 minutes and see what insects visit. So it's a really nice one. Again, you sit in the sun and just enjoy watching the flowers and the bees. But yes, World Bee Day is a good one to focus your events around, and the pollinator monitoring scheme is a good one to encourage people to do. Okay, so we've got every year the Local Nature Partnership, so Wales Biodiversity Partnership, get together and run Wales Nature Week, which this year is on 29th of May to the 6th of June. So this is a sort of a good focus for lots of activities. Perhaps you can have activities running all through the week, or you can link into the national activities which will be taking place all week. So all the local nature partnerships, there's one in every county or every local authority area or national park authority area in Wales, will be running events throughout that week, which you could encourage your communities to get involved with. And it actually is kicking off this week with a garden BioBlitz. So I don't know if Elaine is there, if Elaine could chip in here and say what the garden BioBlitz is going to entail and how people can get involved.
Yes, hello. So on the sorry, I've got an echo, which is very off-putting. The first Saturday of Wales Nature Week, so I think that's the 29th of May, we're going to be asking people to look for all the wildlife in their garden, and send their records into the local record centres, which is a network across Wales. So it's a great opportunity to sort of work out what's in your garden and spend some time there learning about the nature that's right outside your door, basically. Oh, I think you're still muted, Rose.
God, it's impossible to juggle 2 screens and multiple slideshows. It all disappears anytime I try and do anything. Yeah, it was really lovely last year. I really enjoyed doing that. It started with we got up for the dawn chorus again, I think, didn't we? And then went through the day doing various different activities as the day went on, and it was good fun, and lots of people got involved with that on social media as well. So it's a good one to do and get involved with. So to make sure you scribble down those dates. And then we're on to June. 30 Days Wild, I'm sure lots of people have got involved with before. So this is a nice initiative from the Wildlife Trust. So it's the idea is you do a random act of wildness every day throughout June. So again, you can focus events around this or get people to join in and report on social media what they're doing. And you get a nice pack that goes with this one as well. I'm not sure what the theme is for it this year, but there's usually some sort of theme, and it's a good one to do. So the link is there again. So at this point, I think I'm going to bring Gareth in to talk about one of the major activities that is good to do in June. Gareth, are you there?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi everybody, this is my first one of these meetings, so thank you very much for having me. I think it's a fantastic group and really inspirational, so thank you for having me along. And it's a little story that I had with this plant, the Himalayan Balsam. So I live in Treorchy, and behind the comprehensive school in Treorchy, there's a lovely bit of natural woodland there, a natural water source. There's some irises there growing wild. But about 5 years ago, I saw this Himalayan Balsam there. Didn't realise what it was at the time, didn't realise how aggressive it was. Started taking over the forests, killed the irises, suffocated all life out. Lockdown, like all of us, were looking for things to do, and I took it upon myself to learn a lot, as much as I possibly could about this plant and how to tackle it. And it was probably one of the most frustrating / rewarding things I've done. And the key with this plant, I'm not sure how much experience people have with this, is, it's a really shallow rooted plant, and the valleys have a lot of Japanese knotweed, which is obviously we can't touch that plant and we can't do anything about it really, other than reporting to the council, etc., etc. But with this plant, you actually can have a huge impact quite easily. It's a really shallow rooted plant, as I've already said. It can grow that high as well. With that little boy, it's about 2.5 meters it can grow to. And literally the simple act of what I did was just pull it all out, and it took, I would probably do an hour every month. And I would be able to pull out like 400 plants in an hour, because it's sort of similar to knotweed, where it's like how can I say, like a bamboo-y sort of tubular structure, and it dies away pretty quick. The key is if you do pull it all out, is maybe just make one pile of it and revisit it as well, just to make sure, because it can just, you can kill it, you can stamp on it, you can do whatever you want, but if it gets a water source or some sort of soil, it can come back. So the key time to really get this plant, to get on top of this plant, is once it's flowering, because as soon as it's gone to seed, it's impossible to control it at that point, because any vibration or pulling action will make them explode. So I've been doing this, I've just finished year 1 of me going for this plant, and I've probably cut it down by at least 60% in 1 year. I know it's probably about a 5-year project in total, but it's a really good one to get the community involved. I found, because I'm part of the Rhondda Litter Pickers and Environment page, that's only been founded in February. It's got 300 members in under 1 month. And this is partly what I'll be pushing them to do, because this plant is pretty widespread and is a problem for everybody. And even though it looks beautiful and it does attract the bees, there's much more biodiversity that we have, as has already been explained, that we could get our hands on. And look what that community of people just did. I probably did about 1/10 of that and had an impact of over an acre of land. And again, I'm sure it'll pop up this year, but I'm sure it'll be a lot less. Is that okay, Rose? I can talk lots of other stuff if you want me to.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I don't know if you wanted to say about the identification and what people should look for.
Thank you. Yes, I've had a long day of work today, so I'm trying to remember everything. Yeah, it's actually, this is a really good picture. The one in the center, if you look at the bottom of the roots, you'll see it's red, and when it pops up to the ground, you'll see it's red, pretty much, the stem that comes through. And as soon as you learn that that's what it is, you can see it a mile away. You know, you can see it so easily, and it grows incredibly rapid. And the leaves, I think it's the outer edge of the leaves are like somewhat tainted with red, and you'll see a lot of red color, or either around the leaves and the stem. You'll know straight away what it is, and when you pull it out, you'll see that root structure. And then straight away, you'll know exactly what you're looking at. It's actually quite easy. As soon as you've seen one, you'll see a million, you know, and it'll be easy. And it's a great one for the community. And I know with COVID and social distancing, again, you can achieve this and tackle a massive site if needs be, with actually not very much effort. You don't have to be strong to be able to do this. Maybe sure-footed is probably a good thing, but it's all according to where you're doing it, what your community group's focus is. And I just want to say, Rose, the Bumblebee pot is amazing, and I will be doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a nice one to do, that one. Nice and easy, and the stuff you've got lying around is a good lockdown activity.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Gareth, for chipping in and explaining about what you've been doing. So yeah, it's a nice, easy activity and quite rewarding and quite mindful as well. But me and Gareth were talking about this previously, and if you do it for too long, you do end up seeing those stalks in your sleep. So health warning.
Yeah, but it's definitely good for the well-being, and it's good for the morale, especially for a group, because, you know, sometimes, you know, you do projects and the morale does take a bit of a hit. This one it's so easy, and it does really boost morale because you see exactly what you're doing. And yes, in a month's time, other seeds will come through and it will come back, you know, but it'll be a different plant. So you're just tackling the problem better, if that makes sense, and you're managing the area. I weirdly am looking forward to it coming back this year, so at least it gives me something else to do during a lockdown. I am working full time, but obviously I like a busy life, you know.
Yeah, so that's a good one to look for. Thanks, Gareth. Yeah, you will find it is everywhere around RCT. So if, you know, and one of the things to look for is perhaps, rather than trying to do it all, is trying to keep it out of habitats that are you know, nice grasslands. You know, we're going to be getting, hopefully, if COVID allows, Pontoclean Environment Group will hopefully be coming to help us out with some of the balsam at Pant Marsh. So yeah, it's around, and it's a good activity to do. And there's a link there as well about how you can be successful going out balsam bashing. What have we got? Oh, it's edible. Yeah. Yeah, you can have curry with it as well, can't you? I've eaten the seeds raw when I've been out balsam bashing. It's quite nice. Keeps you going until lunch. There we are. Right. So moving on from balsam bashing, I wanted to talk about swifts. Swifts are absolutely one of my favourite birds, and proper sound of summer, with the swift screaming overhead, and perhaps more in the south of the county, but I'm sure they do go up the valleys as well. I'm sure people would know about this, but this is a really nice activity to do around people's houses, because swifts readily nest in people's houses, and they particularly like the old buildings and where they used to be able to get up under people's roofs, and perhaps they can't so much now because buildings are a lot more efficiently built and there's no space for swifts to nest in. So this is a really nice one to encourage, is sort of swift creating swift nest boxes, such as this. So they sort of sit under the eaves and they've got quite a small hole, and they just provide a bit of an opportunity for swifts to nest in. It's difficult to say that, it's like a tongue twister. So Swift Awareness Week is the dates are to be confirmed, but it should be about the end of June. And that's a good time to sort of encourage these activities. There is a survey as well, I think, that you can do alongside this. So that is where we listen out for screaming swifts overhead and perhaps look for the nests that might be on buildings in your communities. And you can report them to Action for Swifts. And at this point, I just had to see if it works, put in a swift call. It's just one of the best sounds. If you haven't heard that out and about, I'm sure you've heard it on various period dramas and things like that. They always seem to have the swift call in the background of every scene that's outside. So that's just a sample of some of the events that are available for those 3 months. This document is not a final document. There's still lots of dates to be confirmed, I think you'll see, but this is from Wales Biodiversity Partnership, collect together the Nature's Calendar. And these are all sort of the national, international events that you can hang your events under, really, and encourage people to do things in line with the national events. So yeah, like I say, there's lots of dates to be confirmed here, but I thought I'd stick it in so that you can see the rough dates that things might be taking place, so you can plan your year ahead. Like I say, I'll give you this presentation, so don't feel like you have to scribble all of this down. I will send you the Nature's Calendar as well, actually, the actual document, so you can see what's coming up. And this will be firmed up throughout the year, and dates will be confirmed, but just to give you an idea. So then just to touch on some activities that you can do at any time of year. And we wanted to highlight here get the Pontoclean Environment Group in to talk us through their Spring Clean event. Obviously litter picking is something that can be done at any time of year, and it's becoming more of a need for it now as well, with the increased use of green spaces and our natural spaces. So I could ask Pontyclun Environment Group to jump in and talk us through their slides.
Hi, good evening. I'm Helen from Pontyclun Environment Group, but there's quite a few of us on the call this evening. We've got Sarah, Margaret, Tim, and maybe a few others as well. So quite well represented for sure. So the Spring Clean is by far our most popular event that we do in terms of community engagement. We do quite a range of different things, including a bit of balsam bashing. So it was good to see somebody else's take on that and get a bit of inspiration too. The events that we've done in the past have had over 50 participants over the course of a weekend in some cases. So it's definitely something that has got people's imagination, I suppose, and it's something that people just want to get involved with because it's so local and it affects what their direct area on their doorstep looks and feels like. So it's been the Spring Cleans have been running for a few years, but yeah, not in 2020 for obvious reasons. Okay, next slide. So the area of Pontoclean is quite far south down in RCT, and we're actually quite close to the M4. As a group, we formed over 10 years ago, and it was initially in opposition to a road being built through green space in the area. And that really galvanised local residents and got people to join forces, I suppose. And this was before I lived in Pontoclean myself. I've been living in the area for about 3 years now. So the group has really got close links with Pontoclean Community Council, and the relationship we've got with that space, which was being considered to be built on, is now that we rent it from the local community council and also manage it, which involves some work like fence repairs, some tree maintenance, or at least arranging that, and work on some of the small bridges too. And we also link with organisations like Keep Wales Tidy, who've been really helpful, and Llais y Goedwig. So, as I mentioned, doing a litter pick has been a really easy topic to get community support for, because not many people are pro litter, and it is something that annoys lots of people, and it's very visual as well, as something that they want to address. So how we've run the sessions in the past has been to split members of Pontoclean Environment Group, or PEG, into smaller teams, along with volunteers, and then covering different areas. And people do tend to prefer to litter pick closer to where they live. And then we provided bags, litter pickers, and high-vis vests on a first come, first serve basis. And most of these items are things that we've purchased as a group, so we have ownership of them, and that's through funds we've built through group membership and occasionally from donations too. And it's really helpful that we've got the link with the community council, because then we can leave the filled bags at known collection points and help people to be aware that there's going to be a higher volume of waste as well. So having advice from organisations like Keep Wales Tidy on safety procedures and risk assessments has been really useful. And when it comes to dealing with more hazardous items as well, luckily we've never had an issue with sharps, but we would try to make sure that people followed safety procedures on that. And our group also has public liability insurance. The main way that we've organised the events has been through word of mouth, and we've got some current councillors and some past councillors in our group, which is really handy for that because they're so well connected. And also I think a lot of it gets spread from people out dog walking. We've got some lovely woodland areas and paths, and people tend to stop and chat, well, less so since COVID, but it's, that's definitely a good way to spread information. We've got a social media presence too, which has become more important, I think, during lockdown. And we've also got means to have articles in local magazines. Some of that is done by our local councillor Margaret, who's on the line, and also flyers in shops. Again, Pontoclean is quite a small community, and there's a lot of support from local small businesses as well for these kind of initiatives, which also help with community spirit. So over the spring clean weekends, we typically run 4 sessions, and they're 2 hours each, and it is really Sarah, the chair, who's the driving force behind the sessions, and really helps to get people feeling like they're involved in something bigger, and that they're actually really sociable as well, and very satisfying, I would say. So in terms of what we found works well and what tips we would like to share with other groups, this activity is very low commitment, so people can do as much or as little as they want, which is great if it's perhaps someone who doesn't want any kind of heavy involvement, or they don't feel very confident. It's a really nice starting activity, and it allows people to meet their neighbours too. There's no minimum numbers, so people may text us or message us to say that they're coming along, but we're not reliant on that in the way that we might be if it was a different kind of activity. So that keeps it low pressure and really quite a relaxed session to run. Liaising with the community council and other partners about pick-up points and procedures for dealing with anything hazardous is useful. And just to keep other organisations in the loop, I suppose, with what's going on. And the Pontoclean Community Council is quite active on Twitter too, so they help with promotion. We've got a good relationship there. It's a really visual activity, so we can do things like before and after photos of areas which have a lot of litter compared to when they're clear. And the sites tend to be quite visible as well, because the volume of litter is usually in the higher traffic sites, so around the train stations, for example. And there's definitely a social aspect to it. For me, when I moved to the area, I got in touch with the environment group, partly because I wanted to meet new people who had similar interests to me. And I think it's been a really good way for people to make those kind of broader networks within the village. And having a key contact or a lead for each site is helpful too. When you think about it, people could really just go out and do this activity on their own. There's nothing to stop individuals litter picking, but people feel more comfortable and confident, I think, to be part of an organised activity and to be doing it with other community members. And it kind of gives that sense of being part of something that I think we all really like, particularly at this time where we've had to be so distanced. So certainly looking forward to doing the next one. We have also done a river clean pre-COVID, which was a really brilliant day, and we got a lot done, but it certainly takes a lot more planning and effort. We were dealing with some really heavy items, pulling them out of the river, like trolleys, other big metal sheets, and they're not easy to dispose of either. So it's not just a case of getting them to the river bank, but also transporting them to somewhere where they can be picked up, and then arranging for them to be picked up then at the roadside. Yeah, that was definitely took more work than I think what we'd anticipated before we started the session. And there's also risks associated with deep water as well. So we had to have a bit more advice from Keep Wales Tidy on that, and some of the safety precautions too. So this spring, because we can't do our normal group activities, Sarah, our chair, has suggested trialling a Take 3 concept, where people would work in households or as individuals and each collect 3 pieces of litter, and then we are trying to think about what we can do to make that more shareable then, whether we'll have some kind of competition for the most peculiar items found or something like that, to encourage people to share their photos and show that there's positive work still going on despite the fact that we aren't physically together. I think that's the end of the slides. Sarah, I don't know if you want to add anything as the main organiser.
I don't think I can, Helen. I think you've done a really good job there. But what I would say, just go back to that point of, and I think it was an idea that Margaret had initially, that not making the sessions too long or seem too big. So sometimes we've done an hour and a half, sometimes a maximum of 2 hours. And what we find is people then overstay the time. So I think it's biting it off in chunks really, and making it accessible to people in that way has been really successful. But thanks, Helen, that was a great job.
Super. And yeah, just got a bit of a plug here of our different ways to get in touch or to link up with us.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Helen. Yeah, it's really interesting to see. I'm going to be interested to see how you run it. If hopefully you'll be able to do some of the practical ones, but yeah, it'd be nice to see what creative ways you come up to get around COVID regulations, if they're still in place. Hopefully they won't be, but it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I should have mentioned as well, so we do still get some family groups or individuals getting in touch with us to borrow the equipment. So that has been going on, but at a much lower level during the outbreak. So we've put procedures in place for sterilising things, but it's been not like usual, but there has been something going on.
Yeah, that's a good idea as well, that people can still get involved in some way. Yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So that's a good activity that people can do at any time. So moving on then, we've got one more sort of event that I wanted to pull up for May is Hedgehog Awareness Week. So again, this is a date that's to be confirmed. But it's the 2nd to the 8th of May, and there's, I'm sure lots of you know, but there's tons of ways that you can help the hedgehogs, and they are really struggling as well. So Sarah from the Hedgehog Helpline, I think, is going to chip in here and talk us through some of the things you can do to support the hedgehogs in your local area as well. Are you there, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi everyone, thank you, Rose. So to introduce myself and the charity, I'm Sarah, primary carer and treasurer of Hedgehog Helpline. We were formed 34 years ago, gained charitable status in '95. Last year, 2020, we rescued 1,324 hedgehogs. Out of those, I myself rescued 229 hedgehogs. RCT, you're fortunate, you've got 3 primary carers. Primary carers, we admit the sick, injured and orphaned hedgehogs, and effectively it's a little bit like taking them to a vet. So we're trained under a vet, and we diagnose and we treat the hedgehogs, all with the aim that they get released back to the wild. Some obviously die. We don't keep any hedgehogs in captivity. Every hedgehog that comes through, if they survive, they're all released back to the wild. This we're going to talk about, if Rose moves forward, we're going to talk about hedgehogs. We're not going to say, so this is all about the hedgehogs and what you guys can actually do to promote trying to save our hedgehogs. So on the next slide, you'll see that 40 years ago, the UK had over 30 million hedgehogs in the UK. That number has declined to under 1 million hedgehogs. This is really serious for the hedgehogs. They were raised to at risk of extinction last year. Many of us are trying to get the Wildlife Act amended. It hasn't been amended for a number of years to actually upgrade the protection status of hedgehogs. Unfortunately, public awareness of hedgehogs has increased drastically, which is fantastic, but it does also have a negative impact on the hedgehogs, because people believe that they're small and they just need to put on weight. And there are always reasons around why a hedgehog is out in the day or it's limping, etc. And we tend to use the analogy of everybody knows what a dog looks like. So if a dog was missing an ear or they had 3 legs, somebody knows there's something wrong with it. And unfortunately, many people don't know what a healthy hedgehog looks like. So therefore, when they bring us a sick, injured or an injured hedgehog, they're quite shocked to know in what a poor condition that hedgehog is. And that isn't their fault. It's just that we need to continue raising work. So moving on, feeding hedgehogs. So there's a misconception about hedgehogs that they're the gardener's best friend, which they are, and they live off slugs and snails. And you can see here from the graph, the hedgehog menu of hedgehogs out in the wild. Their favourite food isn't slugs and snails, it's actually beetles. So we encourage people to have log piles. Lots of people want tidy gardens, but log piles are fantastic for beetles and insects, etc. Caterpillars they love, earthworms, birds' eggs. We actually get hedgehogs that have been raised in chicken coops, and when then they find out that it's the hedgehog, the chickens start laying the eggs, but actually it's the hedgehogs that have been pinching the eggs. So that's the natural diet, and a natural diet is always best. But unfortunately, due to lots of factors, their natural food source is declining rapidly. There's a few reasons. Obviously, we're taking away their natural areas that they are. We are changing our gardens. We're removing bushes, borders, we're removing grass, and we're making our gardens so that they're nice and easy for us to maintain. And we can hoover our lawns now. We don't have to mow them or rake them. We just bring the hoover out on. But they're not very good for wildlife. They're not good for birds. They're not good for hedgehogs. So we encourage support feeding. And there's a couple of myths around support feeding. So if we move forward to the next slide, there's a few items we don't give. So first off, we know we never give a hedgehog milk. We never feed them with bread. But also peanuts, we don't feed them peanuts. So we wouldn't recommend that anybody feeds a hedgehog with peanuts because they can choke on the peanuts. Mealworms, they've got higher amounts of phosphorus, which affects the calcium in their bones. So that can reduce the calcium in their bones, which causes a disorder. And if the hedgehog starts eating mealworms from a hoglet on, their joints don't form. Sunflower hearts are the same, and they can also choke on sunflower hearts. So the best food when we're asked to support feed wild hedgehogs is kitten or cat wet food. And there's a myth, and it's forever on social media: don't feed them gravy, don't feed them fish because you're going to kill a hedgehog. A hedgehog can eat fish flavoured cat food. It is exactly the same nutritional value and the same ingredients apart from flavouring as if you feed them chicken. It has no difference whatsoever. We feed them fish, cat food in care. We feed them gravy in care. We feed them anything we get given, as long as it's cat or dog food. Kitten and cat dry food as opposed to dog food, because the dog food tends to be much harder for them, but they can eat dog wet food. And that's all really, is just put a small amount out. It isn't about feeding them and replacing their natural diet. It is support feeding. So we don't encourage people to put out, 2 boxes of cat food every night to feed 2 hedgehogs that are visiting the garden, because we want them still to be eating and feeding off their natural food. So it is about support feeding, but trying to avoid those natural areas. On the next slide, just to show you the impact of mealworms. I don't know if people can see this in detail. The image on the left-hand side, which is healthy, that's a healthy hedgehog that has been x-rayed to show the skeleton of the hedgehog, so you can see the makeup of the hedgehog. If you look at the right-hand side, this hedgehog is a hedgehog that came into our care, and it was falling all over the place. It was as if it was drunk. And sometimes when a hedgehog is dehydrated, it can act as if it's injured, or if it's drunk, and it's just dehydrated. This hedgehog was wobbling everywhere. It wasn't recovering. We took it to our vet, who x-rayed it, and the finder had told us that they were putting out mealworms every night to feed the visiting hedgehogs, and it was wonderful. And they'd spent £250 a year on mealworms feeding the wild hedgehogs. So they were really upset when they found out that unfortunately this hedgehog did have to be put to sleep. And if you look at the key points of the red, you can actually see that the joints aren't formed on the hedgehog, and they will never be formed on the hedgehog. So that unfortunately is a put to sleep hedgehog, which is quite sad. So we still need to do lots of raising awareness about the mealworms, because people know they eat worms. They associate that a mealworm is the same as a worm, it's just dried, and unfortunately it isn't. And our vet uses the analogy of it is like feeding a child on sweets every day, or offering a recovering addict their substance. So that is exactly what a mealworm does, and unfortunately hedgehogs need to be weaned off mealworms when they have a diet of mealworms, which sounds really bizarre, but it is quite true. An activity which can help on the next slide, it's a really cheap, very simple concept, is to create a feeding station for the hedgehogs. You can buy hedgehog wild food that is packaged and it is sold. It's very expensive. You are better off just popping to Tesco's or Asda's and buying Tesco or Asda branded cat food as opposed to the hedgehog varieties. It's just as good. We're just support feeding, but obviously the neighbours' cats come in. So a feeding station is a really good way of us protecting the food. It means that the hedgehog can go into the feeding station. Hedgehogs have got a very good way that they actually flatten their bodies, so they only need a very small hole to access anywhere. So this concept is some old house bricks, a patio slab with a couple of holes. The cats can't get in there because it's not wide enough. The hedgehogs can go in, they can have a good feed, and they can come out. And on the next one, you can actually see a hedgehog just about to go in. There's an alternative of plastic bed understores where people cut out a hole and they put the lid on, and they're quite good because you can actually see the hedgehogs going into the box. What we do recommend with that is, because cats will go in, is to put a house brick on the inside so that you create a tunnel effect. So the cat has to hit it, so the hedgehog will always maneuver its body around, but a cat won't be able to get the legs in. They've got really long legs, etc. So that's another good way of doing the feeding station. Also with the feeding station, if the hedgehogs are feeding at the bottom of the garden, but you'd like to see them more sort of at the top end of the garden, you can slowly move the feeding station a very small amount every couple of days, and the hedgehog will follow the food and it won't impact on the hedgehog too much. So that's a good way, and you can monitor them from a distance. Another thing that you can do in addition, moving on, is your gardens. So hedgehogs like lots of cover, and there's lots of reasons. They're quite quiet animals. They tend to walk around a garden. They don't tend to walk across a garden, and they like to stay under cover and hidden, and it's from their predators. And we're also predators. They're a flight or fright animal. Animal, and stress actually can be quite detrimental to the health of the hedgehog. So all hedgehogs carry natural parasites internally, and stress can exacerbate that, and then coupled with a lack of food or a lack of water, that can have a much negative impact on the hedgehogs. So you know, we don't recommend that people pick hedgehogs up and weigh them, take them in the house and weigh them, because that is stressing the hedgehog. But certainly creating lots of coverage in your garden. And again, here, this picture, this is perfect for all wildlife. It's brilliant for birds, for bees, hedgehogs. They like, you know, we try and encourage people, can you try and have a messy area in the garden? which isn't messy. You've just sort of cultivated it in a way that is perfect for wildlife. You can have in there your log pile, etc. So that is also great. Another thing that is a project that is really good, and we're certainly finding that more and more hedgehogs, which it's down to the weather basically. So we're a country, now we've always been a country that has been incredibly wet, but I think that is fair to say that we're having more rain now probably than the Amazon rainforest. And what happens is that a hedgehog nest will get destroyed for whatever reason. It could get soaked, it could get flooded, you know, it does happen. And a hedgehog box called a nest box provides a safe, dry area for hedgehogs to spend the night. And the box may be used by visiting hedgehogs. A male hedgehog can walk 3 to 4 miles per night, a female hedgehog 1 to 2 miles per night. They can have all the best intentions to go back to their nest. They can't make it back to the nest, so they can pop into a nest box. You can sometimes find 2 or even 3 hedgehogs in one nest box. There is an old wives' tale that they never sleep in the same nest. They actually do. They are quite solitary animals, but they do. They feed together and they'll fight. But they will also share nest boxes as well. What a nest box does as well is that a nest box provides protection for that hedgehog. So if we move to the next slide, these actually are homes to hedgehogs. These have nesting hedgehogs in. And what tends to happen is that people come along, they want to tidy up, they want to trim their gardens, and they don't realise what they're looking for. So of course they go happily away digging and trimming, and the next thing you've got an injured hedgehog. So a nest box provides the hedgehog with some safety from that. And believe it or not, New Year's Eve I had a hedgehog in that had been the nest was disturbed and the hedgehog had been spayed while they were trying to tidy the garden on New Year's Eve, and the back end of the hedgehog was cut down, it was sliced down. Hedgehog fine, and the hedgehog has since been released, so that was really lucky that they did contact us immediately. And it was just a few days after New Year's Day, somebody had trimmed a hedgehog in their garden, and the hedgehog had been split from its head from ear to ear, and that hedgehog is doing really well, and that hedgehog will be looking to be released in a couple of weeks. But it's really stressful for the hedgehogs. So if we can do what we can to protect them while they're in our gardens, then that's brilliant. So you could encourage, you know, maybe a workshop of trying to make a nest box, some designs of nest boxes. And another simple one, we're nearly to the end, guys, is to create a Hedgehog Highway. And it's really easy. We've become a society now, we don't want to see our neighbours, so we stick up big 6-foot fences, or we put up big walls. And long gone are the days where I was of an age growing up, and I remember hedgehogs travelling into our garden because we had these big metal link fences that, you know, a child could put their head through. But we don't live in a society like that now. We live in big fenced areas. And so by people creating what we call a Hedgehog Highway, which is just a very simple concept, and literally the size of a CD is the only size you need to put a hole in your fence very discreetly. You're not going to get a dog to come through it. And the hedgehogs then can travel from garden to garden. And we know that hedgehogs will live a much longer life if they can live within our urban communities, and it stops them from going out crossing roads, etc., because they can just travel down the row of gardens, So trying to encourage people to create highways all through their houses. We're trying to encourage house builders to put highways in, and you can see here there's lots of ideas. There's a small linked fence. They've put a very small tube, so you have to be careful with tubing, because the hedgehogs can get stuck in the tubing. So if they stop when they're traveling through because it's too long, then they can get trapped, and they then can't get out. They can't move forward. They can't reverse. They can't move forward, and they get stuck. And it's what we call a constriction injury. And if you ever find a hedgehog that has been caught in netting or in any tubing, elastic bands, they all need to be seen by a professional, because they all need to have treatment, because there can be problems in the long run. But you can see here a wall where somebody has actually put a CD-sized hole through the stone wall. The fence, these are made now. This is actually from a fencing manufacturer who makes the fences with little hedgehog holes. But they're all something that you can do quite easy. If you've got a brick wall, you could knock a brick out. And that basically is it. So finally, if you find a hedgehog, if it's out in the day, it's in trouble. The only hedgehogs we would ever see out in the day is a pregnant female who is about to give birth, and she is feathering her nest, so she's collecting material, and she's very unique. And if you see her, you actually know that she's moving with purpose. She's carrying materials in her mouth, and you cannot catch her. Any hedgehog that is out in the day is unfortunately at risk, because they're nocturnal animals, and that is another part that we need to educate people, because a lot of people don't understand that hedgehogs are nocturnal. So if you find one, you know, give us a call or ring your vet. And finally, very quickly, thank you very much for caring about the hedgehogs.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. So I absolutely love the Hedgehog Highway ideas. I think they're great. Maybe that's something that we could do as a project across the whole of RCT at some point.
Yeah, it's really important for the hedgehogs. So, you know, they're much safer in our gardens.
Brill. Okay, we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm just going to quickly skim through these last slides. I just wanted to quickly mention that the partnership itself actually has a small pot of funding through the LNP Cymru project, which is funding my post, and also gives us a bit of money to do small projects. So if you do have a small project, you know, like you fancied buying some rakes to grab a rake later in the year, or this is over in NPT, some amphibian ladders going down drains to help them climb out of the gully pots. Things like that, you can just let me know if you have a project that you'd like to discuss. And last, if you could pop in the chat here, if you found today useful, if you've liked the format, the timings, how it's worked for you, and what you would find useful from these sessions as well. That would be really useful for planning the next ones. If you like the way it worked tonight, or if you think there's something else that you'd like to see covered, just pop that in the chat or send it in an email to me, because that would be really useful, and we can plan the next ones going forward. Last little plug then is for the Introduction to Wildlife Recording course that we've got coming up next Wednesday. So Elaine will be running this from Subrec. So this is a really nice one for sort of getting people off the ground, starting their journey with wildlife recording. So if you'd like to join that, give me an email and I'll book you in. And that's it. This is my contact details for anyone who doesn't already have them. I have put a date in the diary here for the next meeting, Tuesday the 4th of May at 6 p.m. So if you'd like to come along to that, stick that in your diary. And what I will do now, we're officially at the end, but I'll stop recording, and if you wanted to switch your video on and unmute and have a chat or say anything, then please do go ahead. But I hope it's been useful for you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you very much to everyone who's helped out and spoken tonight. It's been brilliant to hear about all the projects that people are doing. So yeah, I'm stopping the recording now.